Hello and welcome to episode 136 of Magic Rays of Light, a podcast exploring the world of Apple TV and so much more. I'm Devon Dundee. I'm joined as always by Sigmund Judge. Sigmund, are you glowing after Apple's It's Glowtime event this week?
I'm not sure if I'm glowing. I'm definitely radiating something
Okay.
after the event. I thought it was a great event. It was a lot of fun. Of course, we'll get into that. But we've got a really exciting week ahead, not only on this show, but also on Mac Stories. Next week sees a number of OS releases, which means that, as tradition forecasts, we've got a number of OS reviews on Mac Stories. We have a iOS and iPad OS review from, of course, Federico Viticci, the Mac OS review from John Voorhees, Watch OS from Jonathan Reed this year, and an addition, the very first Vision OS review from Devon Dundee. Tell me about this. I'm really, really excited. What's the process been like? Of course, there's so much to cover.
Yeah, it's been a fun process. Mostly just living with it for the summer, taking little notes here and there of little things that I notice. It really has been, Vision OS 2 has been such a big change that you just kind of take for granted eventually all the changes. And so going back through my notes and being like, oh yeah, that's new. And I'm excited for people who haven't updated yet to experience that. So that's been fun. And then the writing process was great, just collecting my thoughts and putting it all down and sharing my thoughts on it and also getting the most out of it for people who are going to be updating. So it's been a lot of fun. I've never taken on a project this scale before, which is really fun. I know you have experience with that, of course, with your tvOS review last year. So it's been great, and I can't wait for people to read it. Speaking of the tvOS review, how is that going?
Well, it's been going throughout the summer, right? The issue has been that a number of tentpole features haven't made their way to the developer or public betas during this beta cycle. And it turns out that a number of these features that we were expecting are not coming until later this year. Now, there's no word on the super niche feature of 21:9 support for scope projectors. When that support does come, I have a scope set up that I can go and visit and get all of the data that I need for that. However, there's also a couple of things that have been announced quietly on Apple's Apple TV 4K product page this week that will be coming later this year. They are namely the new screensavers themed on Apple Originals, TVs and movies, along with Snoopy and Peanuts. The Snoopy and Peanuts screensaver itself is going to be limited to Apple TV 4K 2nd Gen and up. So something to keep in mind there. But then also the computational audio for HomePods, 2nd generation that was touted, that's also coming later this year. So there's still a few things to be excited for next week when we expect all of the updates to be available publicly. But there's not quite enough there to really kind of publish my review. Now, last year's review actually came out in October. I was approached this week, actually, last year. I'm hoping that our tvOS 18 review will publish sometime around the same time as last year.
Very cool. Well, I'm looking forward to that as well. Lots and lots for readers to look forward to on Mac Stories. So be sure to keep an eye out there and be keeping an eye out for Sigmund's tvOS review coming soon. Now we have to get into all of the event details, Sigmund. That's going to be our big discussion this week. We've also got our prediction results, which I'm looking forward to grading with you, and the week in Apple TV. But let's start with the It's Glowtime event, because there were a ton of announcements, a lot of which I'm very excited about. So let's get into it, starting with the Apple Watch Series 10. This was the device I actually had my eyes on most this year. I've been due for a watch upgrade, so I've been kind of thinking about what it would take for Apple to get me to upgrade.
Where are you now in terms of your Apple Watch?
I'm on a Series 7. That's the battery is starting to really fade on it, so I'm charging it twice a day. Yeah, I think if it weren't for the battery degrading, I might be in a different spot, but after 3 years with it and the battery just not quite making it through the day, I'm ready to look at other options. So there's a lot to offer here with the Apple Watch Series 10. It's got larger screen sizes. This is the big new feature I think Apple's been touting. 42 millimeters for the smaller size and 46 millimeters for the larger size. And because of the aspect ratio and the way the size works out, it's actually a larger screen than on the Apple Watch Ultra, which is really interesting because that was one of the big features, of course, of the Ultra was that bigger screen, and now it's coming down to the Series 10 as well.
What do you think about these larger screens? Because for me, I just feel like they're starting to look a little bit ridiculous. I don't know.
It is interesting, the trend of the screens getting bigger. Of course, what they try to do is they get the screens bigger is they try to get the bezel smaller so the physical watch doesn't grow as much. But even, I mean, you compare the original Apple Watch to the smallest version available now, and it's definitely grown substantially in size. So I'm a fan of it just because I'm always a fan of bigger screens, and that's just kind of my way of doing it. But for people who prefer smaller watches, hopefully this doesn't cross that threshold because I think that we might be pushing up against it a little bit. I'm actually happy to see it because more screen real estate means more information on the screen, which I'm always happy to see. Now, that OLED screen is also wide angle, which is going to offer better off-axis viewing, which, of course, is important for a device that's constantly rotating on your wrist. You don't have to get it right in that sweet spot where you're looking at it just straight on to get the best viewing angle now. The always-on display is now able to refresh once per second rather than once per minute, which is going to be great for watch faces when in always-on mode because they'll be able to have that second hand kind of going more often, which would be great. There's a new speaker system built in, allowing for the first time for media playback on the device, so you can listen to your music and podcasts straight from your Apple Watch, not just take your phone calls like we've all done before.
I mean, OLED screen, now speaker, we are one step away from a mini TV on your wrist, right? TV app in watchOS 12. I double dare you, Apple, honestly.
Oh, man. I mean, we always have debates about how movies and TV shows should be watched in the best quality. So if they're going to do that, they need to bring Dolby Atmos to the watch, right?
Well, I mean, I have a way of kind of getting around that. Maybe we'll talk about that at some point. Also, it might be interesting to at least see, from an audio perspective, watchOS get the ability to be able to be a AirPlay location. That could be quite handy. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very, very cool to see these speakers.
And this capability is also coming to the Apple Watch Ultra 2. So if you want to listen to music on there, you'll be able to with a software update.
In terms of the internals, we've got the S10 system in package, thinner design with metal coloured match back. We've got a water sensor and a depth gauge alongside sleep apnea detection based on measuring breathing disturbances. This is very, very cool. And, we're kind of going back to this initial idea of the Apple Watch being a health device. We saw some things leave the device due to legal reasons. So it's nice to see this added benefit kind of get thrown back on to the Apple Watch, right?
Yeah, and I think it's an important one. Sleep apnea is one of those things that you would normally have to do a sleep study to diagnose, and it's one of those things that I think too often doesn't get diagnosed early enough, and so having this device capable of giving you those early warning signs and telling you to go get checked out, I think that's great and an awesome addition to the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch Series 10 comes in multiple material and finish options. Aluminum starting at $399, jet black, rose gold, and silver. That new jet black looks amazing. In the initial video where they're, revealing the device, they always like to do that little tease at the beginning before they actually start talking about it. I noticed how shiny the case was, and I was like, oh, they're using a stainless steel Apple Watch in the announcement video instead of an aluminum. And then they revealed that was actually an aluminum finish, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So I'm really excited for the jet black, and happy to see midnight no longer being thrust on us through the aluminum Apple Watch. We'll have a little bit more to say about midnight here in a moment, but at least on the Apple Watch, it's no longer around.
One little detail that I love now is, and this is something that was a bugbear of mine, they've removed something from the Apple Watch this year, which I'm very, very happy about, especially if you had like a 3G or 4G version of the Apple Watch. And that is that red ring that was on the dial, right? That has now gone. Yes, finally. Thank you. That is definitely a bonus for me, alongside titanium replacing the stainless steel, which will start at $699. So we'll get that premium finish in either natural gold or slate without that red ring. The update didn't end there, did it? We had the Apple Watch Ultra 2. I mean, this is the same Apple Watch Ultra 2 that came last year. But as you mentioned, we're going to have that speaker system being active for media playback. That's nice. We've got a new black titanium finish, a new band option being the titanium Milanese loop. No new system in package, continues with the S9, and that's $799 for those looking. I've got to say, I do like some of the band options with this newer black version of the Ultra. Very, very cool. I do think it's a difficult choice this year if you're looking for an Apple Watch.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing is the Series 10 getting some of the best features of the Ultra in terms of that bigger screen, probably some increased battery life alongside that. It's also got the water temperature and depth gauge, which is important for certain use cases. It's not as extreme as the Apple Watch Ultra, so if you're doing like deep sea stuff, obviously that's not going to work. But the decision to not even put the new system and package in the Apple Watch Ultra while they're doing all this work on the Apple Watch Series 10 definitely makes that decision hard. And you've got to think about also longevity. If you're going to be keeping these watches around for a long time, software support and when different chips get dropped is going to be a factor in the future. So yeah, it's an interesting decision. I'm not sure why they didn't just do a spec bump and add the color as well. But if you're looking for an Apple Watch Ultra, I guess at least you have two color options now.
Absolutely. Let's talk about AirPods. I think AirPods is probably one of the most exciting parts of this event, because initially it looked like we were getting updates to all of the AirPods, and in some ways we did. This whole line got at least one bit of news. Let's start with AirPods 4. This is a new design, similar to AirPods Pro, but without the silicon tips. Includes a H2 chip, a smaller AirPods case, which I got to say, so dinky. I want this to come to the AirPods Pro somehow, in some way. It's beautiful. Of course, USB-C, like everything else. 30 hours of battery life, available in two versions. We've got AirPods 4 for $129, or I think the version anyone should be really looking for, and that is AirPods 4 with active noise cancellation at just $50 more at $179. Also, this means that it includes transparency mode, adaptive audio, a speaker built into the case, and wireless charging on that AirPods 4. I'm going to call it Pro model, although it's going to be called AirPods 4 with active noise cancellation. I think it's really cool that at least there's an option for active noise cancellation, even though it's not going to be as good as the AirPods Pro. You at least have some version of it on the baseline AirPods. And I know some people really didn't like the design of the previous generation, and they just didn't fit well in their ears. This, I think, is going to work out quite well.
I think these are really compelling, and the more we get into this event recap, the more I'm realizing I think the theme of it is those pro level features working their way down the line and becoming available to more and more people at lower price points, which is really impressive to see. I did not think they were going to be able to do active noise cancellation without ear tips. That just shocked me. And I really didn't understand how they were going to differentiate the AirPods Pro from these AirPods 4 with active noise cancellation, but we'll get into that in a minute, because they actually did take the AirPods Pro to the next level as well in terms of software. So this is really compelling. I think continuing to offer a version without noise cancellation at a lower price point is smart, because you want that entry point to be as low as possible while also keeping it modern. You know, that classic AirPods style, I still see a lot of people wearing those around because they were keeping that style in the lineup for so long. So we're getting that out of the lineup and moving to this new generation. And it's definitely exciting to see. I didn't think I was going to be excited about AirPods 4, but this announcement really got me. And as much as I love my AirPods Pro and don't plan on changing them out anytime soon, I'm really happy with this AirPods lineup that they've given us here with the AirPods 4.
I'm going to stick with my AirPods Pro, and we'll get into that in a bit. But the other pair of AirPods that I have, that I love, honestly, ever since they released in 2000, with the AirPods Max. I've been waiting for a while for there to be some newer generation, even if it's a switch to USB-C. I kind of promised myself pre-event that if there was nothing else, I would still probably get a new pair, hopefully in the silver, because I got black last time, and I love those two colorways. Here's the interesting thing. Of course, new AirPods Max was announced, and so have new colours alongside the USB-C port. So we've got Starlight, Midnight, Blue, Purple, and Orange. No black, no silver. And I, for one, am pretty gutted at this. There hasn't been any real changes. Otherwise, it remains the H1 chip inside, so giving you 2 times the noise cancellation that you would get from like an AirPods Pro 2, right? So a couple of tidbits here. Biggest disappointment to me of this event, because I really wanted black or silver. It is strange to me that you would offer Starlight and Midnight, which we talked about with the watches, being kind of like, you know, if you're getting the lower end watch, you get Starlight or Midnight. You don't get black or silver. You have to pay extra for that. This time, we're offering the highest end AirPods Max headphones with the low end colours, in my opinion. I managed to deal with Starlight with my iPad Mini when I had one, and that was because it was in a case. I like everything to kind of match. So I really got excited early on in this event with all the black colorways and black finishes. I don't understand with these colours, and don't get me wrong, I know some people will be really excited about these colours. But if, for example, someone is about to board a flight and they go in and they're like, right, I'm going to buy some headphones for this flight, a business person or whatever, they're now going to have the choice of AirPods Max with all of the great features like auto switching and, you know, noise cancellation, transparency, all of that. But they'll also have the likes of Sonos and Sony and Bose, who are offering in like black and white, or you've got orange and purple. And so to me, the product currently doesn't make a lot of sense. I understand, you know, AirPods Max weren't for you because of the pressure, but in general, you were pretty impressed with the original product, which this basically is.
Yes. I have a special place in my heart for AirPods Max. I think they're an incredible product that I'm really happy that Apple is making. I think it's really an opportunity for them to show off the best they can do in terms of headphones, and they definitely do that, but they're not taking a step forward technology-wise with the chip, which is really odd. And I agree with you on the color choices. I think the purple is really pretty, and I love that, but it's not something I'm going to wear around, right? That's just not me. If I were someone looking to buy AirPods Max right now, I'd honestly probably be searching out some older stock of the older colorways just to kind of pick up something more neutral. What this feels like to me is like a very typical, like mid-cycle color refresh. Like, you know, it's not a major update. They updated the port, which is great and necessary, but this is not a new generation in any sense. And with the timeline that the AirPods Max are on, it just feels so long since the original release to just be doing a mid-cycle refresh, if that makes sense.
I'll give you another reason why it's a downgrade. There is no USB-C to audio cable available on the store.
Oh.
So if you wanted to use these with like a traditional sound system or you know, for podcasting, for example, you really can't because there just isn't that accessory available. I don't know if it's coming later on or if it's just something that so many people complained about that they were just like, we're just not going to make a new one for the new headphones. But I definitely think it's something to think about if you're in the market for AirPods Max, possibly going down and getting the Lightning version for that reason. And if you really desperately want USB-C, there are adapters that you can get that are Lightning to USB-C adapters. Pretty flush. They're not perfect, but they do the job. So that's AirPods Max. Yeah, super, super disappointing, but my wallet is happy on this one.
Well, the AirPods Pro didn't get any hardware updates. We're sticking with AirPods Pro 2, but they did get a bunch of new software updates that I think are incredible and do speak to what the AirPods Pro have to offer beyond what we're seeing now with AirPods 4. So first up is hearing protection, where the AirPods Pro will recognize loud noises in your environment and actively reduce them while also keeping that sound realistic and you being able to enjoy it. This is something that they've done in the past in a limited sense, but they're really expanding that and advertising that as a feature of the AirPods Pro 2, which I think is great. I wore mine to a concert a couple of months ago, and I noticed a couple other people who were also wearing theirs instead of earplugs, and I thought it made for a great experience because it was very clear. The sound wasn't muffled, but at the same time, I didn't walk out feeling like I had, really mistreated my eardrums in any way. The AirPods Pro 2 will also be getting hearing tests in an upcoming software update so that you can go ahead and test your hearing on your device and see if there's any degradation happening there that you might want to get checked out. So Apple talked about the fact that a lot of people don't get their hearing checked regularly, and I'm definitely one of those people. I haven't had my hearing checked in many, many years, so I'll be interested to give this a try and see if there's any parts of the range that I'm not picking up on that I just haven't noticed and maybe want to get checked out.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was watching the news just the other week, actually, where they were talking about hearing loss and if it can be identified quickly, it can be stopped, right? Because there are certain steroids that you can get that can help if treated in time, especially with like tetanus and just overall hearing loss in one ear. And the reason why I kind of paid attention to this was because I get the slight odd bit of tetanus, but I've got some family members that have had some issues recently as well. So I think this is great in terms of hearing tests. What's even better, though, and this is actually something that we tried with my family, with my grandmother, a few years ago, in fact. There was like a feature on AirPods where you could kind of like use them in a pseudo way to be a little bit like hearing aids, but they weren't quite. They just helped understand the noises around them and helped with certain frequencies. Mm-hmm. Well, the big reveal at this event, which is amazing, is the ability for AirPods Pro to be used as clinical grade hearing aids. This is massive for this product. There's a reason why this is the AirPods Pro. Honestly, when I don't have over-ear cans on for this podcast, I normally live with my AirPods Pro in my ears and then I switch for the AirPods Max. It's just the way things are. This, I just think, is incredible. I really do. If your ears fit and you can get on with the silicone tips, I think this is just outstanding. I think it's also already having an impact on traditional hearing aid companies in terms of their stocks. But yeah, mind-boggling to me.
It really is. I've been thinking about this concept for a couple of years. We've heard rumors that Apple could be moving in this direction, but to actually see them announce it and say that they're going through the approval process and actually making this a reality for people is really incredible. It'll use information from that hearing test to tune AirPods Pro to help fill in the gaps of what you need to hear out in the world, which is amazing. And it'll also tune what you're hearing from your device as well. So when you're on phone calls or listening to music and podcasts, it'll also interact there, which is really great. My question now is I'm just waiting to get that email from my insurance company that I might qualify for AirPods Pro as a medical device. I think we'll see at least some insurance companies get on board with that, which is cool in terms of access and giving people another option when it comes time to do hearing aids. to have something that might be more affordable and also just kind of work better with the way they live their lives.
Yeah, I mean, the standard price over here for like high quality hearing aid, I think it's about £3,500.
Oh, wow.
Pounds, right? So we're now getting that down to 200 and something pounds over here. I forget the actual price of AirPods Pro. I tend to buy things and not look at the price. It's a lot easier that way. One other kind of, we get these bento box style presentations at the end with a slide that kind of brings everything together. One thing that was mentioned in terms of AirPods Pro new features was Media Assist. I've been testing this. It's amazing. Basically, it adjusts the sound delivery depending on the type of content that you are listening to, which I think is very, very cool. I do think, though, at some point we are going to need to go down the road of having some kind of control when it comes to EQ for people that don't want everything just to be kind of processed on how Apple and the software feels that it should be. This was, I think, the biggest surprise for me this year, beyond the iPhones, because there were a number of surprises when it came to iPhone this year. Some that had been, kind of thought about and we'd mentioned in our predictions, which we'll get into. But let's start with the iPhone 16 and 16 Plus, because a lot of upgrades here, but one that I never imagined would come to the standard iPhone.
I'm interested to hear which one was such a big surprise for you, Sigmund, but let's start with the basics. The A18 chip in the iPhone 16 and 16 Plus supports hardware ray tracing, and it's also capable of running Apple Intelligence. A little bit of catch-up on the processor side this year after a couple years of being on the A16 chip, so that's actually a really big jump for the baseline iPhones. It also includes boosted battery life. Apple talked about how the efficiency of the chip, as well as some redesigns inside to help with heat dissipation and a bigger battery, resulted in better battery life. Includes the action button from last year's iPhone Pro. So people who are fans of that will be able to have that on the 16 and 16 Plus now. Of course, you can adjust that action button to do whatever you want it to do, though I imagine a lot of people will probably end up just using it as that mute switch because they're just used to having it there, right? The other button coming to the 16 and 16 Plus that I was not expecting to appear this year is camera control, which we've been calling the capture button. Apple's calling it camera control. They don't even want to call it a button. They call it a tactile switch, but let's be real, it's a button. It's a very fancy button, but it allows you to activate and control the camera as well as upcoming visual intelligence features. So a lot going on with that camera control. As predicted, it can zoom in and out if you slide your fingers across it. If you short press on it, you can get some access to some other features, adjusting just different aspects of the camera. This visual intelligence thing I wasn't expecting. It's kind of an addition to Apple Intelligence that allows you to use your camera as the input for getting information about the world around you. And some examples Apple gave were getting the hours and menu for a restaurant by just taking a picture of it, adding an event to your calendar just by taking a picture of the poster of it, which is kind of cool. And then they also showed someone taking a picture of someone's dog to get its breed from the Apple Intelligence kind of smart recognition feature, which I thought was very odd.
Yeah. The first thing I thought was a great tool for dog theft.
Dog theft? Oh, no.
I can't help it. That was the first thing that came to me. And I did think it was if I wasn't in an area that I knew, then it'd be kind of cool to hold my phone up and get, information by just taking a photo. That's cool. I think the biggest surprise to me was an action button as well as camera control. I didn't expect both to come. I thought maybe the action button this year and camera control next year, but I think that's really good. And as you were mentioning, the democratization of features and really coming down to all Apple users, I think is just fantastic. In terms of the cameras, we've got an improved ultra-wide camera with autofocus and better low-light performance, as we do every year. Spatial video, photo and audio capture. This is interesting to me about spatial video. Of course, they've realigned the cameras to be able to do spatial video on the iPhone 16 and iPhone 16 Plus. I do wonder what Apple will need to do in the short term to convince people to actually shoot in spatial. The nice thing, I think, is that you do get an addition in the software for an actual spatial video mode now, as opposed to, you know, having to finang in settings to get that all working and then make sure to be in landscape mode, you know. So they've at least made it easier, but with the Apple Vision Pro being as expensive as it is still, yeah, there's going to have to be a reason, I think, for people to start shooting in spatial. But it's nice to have.
I agree with you. As a Vision Pro owner, I, of course, love having it. And they're kind of pitching it as future-proofing, but I think people have to actually experience their memories in that mode in order to actually understand the value of it. So I agree with you. It's going to be hard to convince people, but hopefully that will become easier over time. I should have seen spatial photo capture coming based on that feature in Vision OS 2 that allows you to convert your pictures into spatial pictures. But that was not on my predictions, and I'm interested to see how this works because spatial pictures in Vision OS 2 don't show the live aspect of them. You kind of have to switch back and forth to get both. And so I'm curious how they're going to handle that here if it'll be capturing live photos as well, because that's an important aspect of iPhone photography as well. And then spatial audio capture, this is cool. You're going to be able to edit the mix after the fact and use these different effects to bring the background and foreground into different balances and even try to make the audio sound like it was recorded in a studio, which is interesting. And
so that's coming to the iPhone 16 and 16 Plus?
Yes, it is.
Sorry, I didn't realize that.
It's coming to both the 16 and the 16 Pro. It's kind of pitched as a Pro feature, but, you know, they change that mix as they have to you know, give the best story during the event. But after the fact, yeah, it's coming to both, which is great to see. And I'm excited to try this because as someone who, you know, films a lot of videos on my iPhone in noisy environments, it's like, okay, I would love to hear what the person I was filming said a little bit better. And having those options is going to be awesome, as well as spatial audio. So if you're wearing your AirPods Pro and you want to hear it in kind of that spatial environment, you can do that as well. The iPhone 16 and 16 Plus are available in 5 colors: black, white, pink, teal, and aquamarine. That aquamarine looks incredible. I actually really dig the colors this year. They look awesome.
Yeah. I'm kind of tempted, to be quite honest with you, at a standard iPhone this year because of the colors. I feel like I've been so deprived of these colors for so long. Now, there are things that you miss. We'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, you know, starting at $799 for the 16 and then $899 for the 16 Plus. I genuinely think that this is a great year for an upgrade if you're due one. Let's talk about iPhone 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max, because it's a bit of a difficult one, this one, I think. The A18 Pro chip with ray tracing at twice the speed of the A17 Pro. Machine learning accelerators optimized for Apple Intelligence. Slightly increased screen sizes at 6.3 and 6.9 inches with smaller bezels. I feel like, though, even though there are smaller bezels, these phones are starting to get more unwieldy as each version goes along. Of course, improved battery life, camera control, just like on the iPhone 16 and 16 Plus. The main camera hasn't changed, 48 megapixels, but it is joined by a 48 megapixel ultra-wide camera on the Pro, which I think is very, very cool. As we've discussed just a few weeks ago when I had an accident with my 15 Pro Max, I wasn't too worried because the wide camera wasn't a camera that I used that much. Now, the main reason for that was because of the quality, right? Now with a 48 megapixel camera basically being in parity with your main camera, this is an angle that I would use creatively, I think. So very interesting there. A 5 times telephoto camera now on the smaller model, not just the Pro Max. Very cool there if you're not a Max guy. I am, because content. But in terms of the magic behind these lenses, tell us a little bit more.
Well, the main camera, which is now called the Fusion camera, is faster and more efficient, resulting in 0 shutter lag when shooting 48 megapixel Pro RAW or HEIF photos, which is amazing. The way that they were able to get that shutter lag down to 0. I think it's going to be great for people who are really doing some hardcore iPhone photography and wanting to get the most out of it. Not having to wait for that shutter to close and capture is going to be great. The camera can also record video now at 4K, 120 frames per second in Dolby Vision, which is just wild. I mean, you hear those numbers and it might sound a little bit like gobbledygook, but what you can do with this camera, I mean, the quality that you're getting and that frame rate, it just unlocks so many creative possibilities, as we saw in that demo video for the Weeknd's music video. And the way that you're going to be able to film at that frame rate, but then also slow things down after the fact and kind of make those decisions later about what speed you want, it's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that's magic to me, right? Being able to shoot something at 120 frames per second and then decide, actually, I'm going to go 24 frames per second. This is like the dream tool, I think, for the first James Cameron movie shot on iPhone, right? The next thing will be variable refresh rates, or HFR video, where we can have higher frame rates but variable. That'll be really interesting. We're probably going to have to wait for screen technology in terms of, what to view it on comes down and scales down. But yeah, this is fantastic. And to be honest with you, this was like the main thing where I went, now I get beyond the quick launch of any camera app with the camera control. This was what really kind of grabbed my attention. Just being able to do it, to be able to flip without even having to touch the screen between all of these different modes. Wow. Yeah.
I think this is where the Pro in the iPhone Pro really comes in, and you see how this could be applied in professional environments and in ways that normal people can benefit from in terms of learning and improving their craft and making beautiful things. But really, they're making these iPhones to be used in professional photo and videography sessions, which is just incredible. The iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max can also capture spatial video, photos, and audio as well, with that same audio adjustment tool after the fact, which is great.
Yeah, and the thing that I was surprised by with this was, considering we have two 48 megapixel lenses now, spatial video is only going to be able to be shot in 1080p and not 4K, which was the upgrade I was really hoping for on the Pro phone this year.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a camera limitation or a processor limitation or storage. I don't even know how big those files would be, but yeah, it's interesting, and it's still one of those compromises with spatial video that you just have to keep in mind that the quality is going to be lower on your phone, but you also get that spatial information if you're watching in Vision OS. The 16 Pro and Pro Max are available in 4 titanium finishes with a microblasted texture: black titanium, which is darker this year, white titanium, natural titanium, and the new color, desert titanium. We had lots of questions about what that would be called and what it would look like, and now we've seen it. So what do you think?
I'm not sure about the finish, to be honest with you. I saw some hands-on videos from the actual event, and the back of it is a little too light. I expected it to be a little browner kind of gold, right? For it to represent the dunes of a desert. I think if I were to, I'd probably go with natural titanium again, or white, because I do kind of miss my white iPhone. But then the black could be interesting as well. I think all but desert for me. And that is if I was to purchase an iPhone 16 Pro or 16 Pro Max this year. They start at $999. The 16 Pro with 128 gigabytes of storage, or $1,199 with the 16 Pro Max starting from 256 gigabytes of storage. There was that rumor, wasn't there, that there would be an increase in terms of the basic storage for the iPhone Pro this year. That hasn't happened, which I think is nice for those that don't need it and maybe don't want to spend the extra. So that's good. But after this event, there were a couple of things that I took away from it. I thought that very much like my tvOS 18 preview story during DubDub, where we were talking about the democratization of features in tvOS, I totally agree with you that I think this year that was the theme for Apple, with the introduction of Apple Intelligence, which feels like, and I think it's fair to say, was a quick pivot. Of course, the Apple Intelligence features not going to be available until later this year, so new iPhone users won't necessarily get access to Apple Intelligence right off the bat. One thing from a presentation point of view, I was having this conversation actually with Benjamin Mayo at 9 to 5 Mac yesterday, and I mentioned it to him, and he said, I've been saying this for years. I think Apple needs to get away from the pre-recorded presentations, or at least from the style of pre-recorded presentations they're doing. They feel, whilst professional, they're lacking that human element. Everything looks almost too perfect, which is amazing because everything's shot on iPhone. And everything feels a little bit too scripted. The human element, I feel like, has been kind of pulled out a little bit. Although, big props to the marketing team on how they marketed Apple Watch this year with the opening montage. Less dramatic, more joyful, more inspirational. So I loved that. But I really want to get back to that in-person presentation. Everyone else has since the pandemic, and I think it just adds a little something extra that really made Apple events what they were back in the day. But maybe I'm just being old, I don't know.
I don't think you're just being old. I think there's definitely a sense among a lot of people that the live presentations had just a different energy to them. There was a little bit of nervousness, right? Because the demos could have gone wrong, and there's just a little bit more of a human touch to it because it's all happening right before your eyes and you never know exactly what's going to happen. At the same time, I feel like Apple enjoys the extra control they get over the recorded videos because they don't have to worry about something going wrong. They can just do another take. And the thing that I appreciate most about the pre-recorded videos is the number of people who get to present in them. There's a lot of transitions, but I think it just introduces more voices into those presentations that normally, you'd have, I don't even know how many they used to do for the live presentations, maybe like 6 or 7 people tops, but here they're just constantly changing speakers, giving people opportunities to be in front of the audience and show the faces who are making these things, which I think is awesome. So if they do go back to the live presentations, I hope they find a way to incorporate that back into it. But honestly, I feel like Apple has made the decision to switch to the pre-recorded, and I don't foresee them going back personally. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I feel like it really was a great event, more exciting than I anticipated based on the rumors, and especially, you always get those rumors, they build up, the lists get long, and then right before the event you hear about things that aren't coming, that, they're coming later. There's apparently going to be another event next month according to the rumors. So my expectations were lower going in, and Apple just exceeded them in every way. It's kind of an interesting place to be. It's like a TikTok thing, right? There's the features come down from the pros, and then the pro devices have to rise back up to that next level to show us what's possible next. I feel like the iPhone really did that this year. The AirPods Pro did that this year, but where Apple missed was with the AirPods Max and the Apple Watch Ultra. Both of those didn't get that next level that they needed to kind of stay above the rest of the lineup and show why they belong there. So that's the two interesting places I'd say the product lineup is in, and we'll see how long we have to wait for updates there to really make more sense of those lineups. But for the mass products, the ones that most people buy, they're so much better this year. Apple just really feels like all they had, everything they had sitting around ready to go, they just threw it all in and really made these products compelling. So very exciting.
In terms of compelling products, what compelled you enough to part with your money this year, if any?
Well, I've been looking to upgrade my Apple Watch. I was on the fence going in based on the rumors about if it would be enough of an upgrade for me to buy it. But the increased screen size combined with a really, really good color in jet black, that was what really pushed me over the edge. I was not excited about buying a midnight watch. So getting that jet black, I did end up ordering the Apple Watch Series 10 in jet black aluminum. And I went up to the bigger screen this time. I've been wearing the smaller Apple Watch for several years now, but the fact that the bigger screen is kind of that big new feature and it really is just like the ultra level screen, I want to experience what that's like on my tiny little wrist and see what happens.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I think it's a great pick, actually, from everything that was announced. It's going to feel weird for me not to want an iPhone this year. The reality is, the plan going in was that, from the iPhone 15 Pro Max getting all of the USB-C connectivity and everything and becoming really a pro camera, I felt that the plan would be to upgrade this year, and then each year that I upgrade, each phone gets used as a camera in other creative endeavors, right? I'm tempted to look at all of the iPhones this year, and it might not be a pro phone. And this is actually, I'd been thinking about it because I thought the colours were just beautiful this year, and everything that came through, I actually had completely overlooked the fact that the action button had also come to the iPhone up until now. So whilst there were lots of great coverage over on Mac Stories during this event this week, the piece that really kind of resonated was a byline by Brendan Bigley, who has this great article, Maybe I'm Not a Pro Anymore. And it really goes over his kind of reasoning for an iPhone Pro model all of these years and why this year might be the step away from that Pro model. And I totally get it. I think the only thing I feel I maybe would miss is the screen quality of the Pro phone, the refresh rate on the Pro phone as well. But yeah, in general, I think it's a really, really hard task to kind of decide between a 16 Plus and a 16 Pro Max this year. I think the plan kind of moving forward is to at least loan these and see what they're like, make a decision within 2 weeks and return one or both, because I've just recently repaired the camera on my iPhone 15 Pro Max. I did it actually on the Monday. So yeah, just in general, I have no kind of solidified plans, but one thing's for certain: no new AirPods Max.
Totally fair.
Shall we get into our picks? We had some predictions. We had 5 original picks and our out there pick. Each original pick worth 2 points each. Our out there pick worth 5 points. Shall we have some fun and go through our out there picks very quickly?
Of course, let's do it.
Because neither of them actually came true, right? I predicted that Apple would announce Apple Intelligence expansion to HomePod. Maybe this is a prediction for the iPhone 18 event. Maybe it's just a little bit too early on this.
Yeah, there were no real announcements about what Apple Intelligence will be like on non-iPhone, Mac, iPad devices. There was no real story for the Apple Watch and no story for the Home, so yet to be seen, but it is a story that needs to be told, and we'll be looking out for that. So keep this pick around, Sigmund, because I think it will come true eventually. My out there pick was that Apple announces a new partner for the Apple Card. I always have to throw in a services pick. I love Apple services, and I wanted something for the Apple Card this year, and there wasn't anything announced. It wasn't mentioned. There was actually a story on 9 to 5 Mac right after the event that said, yes, Goldman Sachs still wants out of the Apple Card agreement. So it still remains in limbo, my precious Apple Card that I love so much. But It'll come, but it may not be a big announcement at an event like this one. So maybe my pick was a little too out there, but you got to swing for it sometimes. Let's
talk about our regular picks. I think these went a little bit better. Where do we want to start? With yours or with mine?
You go first.
Okay, so number 1, iPhone 16 Pro line gets larger screens. Ding!
They definitely did. My first pick was that a new camera button is included on the iPhone 16 Pro line, but not the iPhone 16. That's an X for me because it was on both. And, I really didn't think Apple would do it. I thought they'd kind of continue that cycle of introducing something on the Pro and then the regular one next year. But they broke the cycle, and that camera controls on both of them, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, a major congratulations, I think, on that decision to Apple. My second pick, that new button, what we know to now be camera control, will have some sort of touch-based interaction, maybe to swipe between modes. Tick!
You got it. You got this one. You nailed it. And it's actually incredible how much functionality they put into this button. It's going to be interesting to see how intuitive it is to figure out once we get it in our hands. But yeah, that swiping I think is going to be really important for using the camera going forward. So great pick. I predicted that another iPhone camera would get a 48 megapixel sensor, which it did. It came to the ultra wide camera, so that's a ding for me.
It is. It's a ding and a tick. I have not been consistent throughout these so far. So let's go with ding and tick from now on, and an X for bads. Pick 3 for me was that a new range of cases and bands are announced, moving away completely from the fine woven range. I was half right, Devon.
You were right in the sense that the fine woven iPhone cases are gone. And they actually did announce a new range of iPhone cases from Beats, which is interesting to me. They're polycarbonate. I kind of like the look. I might have to pick one up to go with my Beats Solo 4s as I'm out and about. I'm not usually a case person, but this actually has me intrigued. But regardless, fine woven does live on in the watch bands and in the Apple Wallet. So unfortunately, no points for you there. Although, again, I guess if we were doing half points, you'd probably get 1.
No, don't give me 1. I got it wrong.
Sorry, I'm too generous with the points here. My third pick was that the Series 10 Apple Watch line would feature larger displays, but no redesign or new health sensors. I would argue that this is a check. The word redesign may be hard to define, and this one definitely borders that line. What I was thinking in terms of redesign was like either a different shape or a different band connection style, which we didn't get. That was rumored, but the bands continued to work from all the previous generations. So we got a larger screen, slightly more rounded case, but I wouldn't call that a full redesign.
On the outside, I'd agree. There's no redesign. Internally, it's very, very different.
Yeah, I didn't specify that either. I was thinking external, but you're right. They did do a lot of work on the inside as well as on the back.
That's all right. You got the tick. Ding!
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I could use all the points I could get here as we're going to learn before long.
Okay. Well, my next pick 4, USB-C AirPods Max announced alongside an app to adjust EQ on AirPods. Now, you've put this through, or I think... Did Apple Intelligence or some kind of AI do this? I'm not sure.
Well, we use Apple Notes for our shared documents, so there is a history. I could go back and find who actually did this, but there's a check here. I kind of wonder if this is one of those half-right picks, though, because you got USB-C AirPods Max, but there's no app to adjust EQ, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think that the app to adjust EQ was actually part of the prediction. I thought it was just kind of like and I think this might happen. But sure, give me the point. AirPods Max came and it was a major disappointment.
Yeah, you know what? To comfort you in your time of mourning over the update to the AirPods Max, I think you deserve the point. So we'll call the EQ pick ungraded, and you got a check mark there. Unlike me with my fourth pick, where I said the fourth generation AirPods include an H2 chip and volume controls, but no active noise cancellation. I was wrong on both fronts. They include active noise cancellation, and they don't include volume control. That actually remains a Pro feature. So yeah, totally off here. I did not anticipate the mix of features on AirPods Pro 4 and how much of the Pro features they would bring down. So I still feel like these kinds of picks where I was being so negative are win-win situations, because either I got points or I got a really cool product. So, I mean, no points for me, but I guess I win in a different sense.
Well, my final pick is that Apple announced at least one new benefit for Apple One subscriptions. It was surprising to me, actually, how little attention was paid to any Apple services this event. Whether it was Apple TV, we didn't even get like a full preview or anything like that. Who knows? Whilst we're recording, they may have released one. But it was a major surprise to me. There was very, very little for us to go on when it came to services this year, which is amazing considering, all of the different services and how much revenue they generate for Apple annually, to not have any mention at all at the biggest event, really, for the most eyeballs when it comes to Apple.
Well, they did have a ton of new hardware to announce, so that ate up a lot of time. And they also dedicated a good bit of time to Apple Intelligence, which is not a service per se, but it is like a new feature that they really want people to understand what's going on there. So I think that might have eaten into the Apple services time. But we've also got an event rumored for next month that is going to be a little lighter, I think, on hardware. So maybe we'll have some services there.
Who knows, Devon? Just kind of going on the Apple TV fault here. What if those features aren't coming to Apple TV until later this year, because later this year there's a new Apple TV?
I love it, but you're also giving away predictions for the next event. So hold on to that. Keep a list somewhere, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
I'm going to hold on to this pick as well for the next event, because I predicted a new iPad mini with an A18 chip would be announced. And that ended up not happening, despite rumors pointing towards it, and even the iPad mini being in low stock in a lot of places. So I think we're still on the cusp of an iPad mini announcement. It just wasn't for this event, because this event was so focused on iPhone, AirPods, and the Apple Watch. So I didn't get that pick. That's another X for me in a long list of X's for this event.
Yeah, the scores ended with me winning at 6-4. So it was closer than we initially thought, mainly because Fine Woven and the bands that I imagine hardly anyone will buy for their Apple Watch are still there. So there we go. Another event out of the way, Devon. And again, an exciting time if you have any pre-orders. We'll no doubt talk about hardware later, I'm sure. Now, let's talk about Apple TV, because it is an Apple TV podcast after all. As we mentioned, there wasn't anything announced in terms of Apple TV at the event, but there's some Apple TV adjacent announcements and some awards news and a little bit of production news as well to talk about. So, where do we want to start?
Let's start with a product we talked about just a few weeks ago here on the show, because it is actually seeing the light of day now. That's the HuPlay HDMI SyncBox 8K. It is finally available for purchase at a listing price of $350. I think that's a $50 increase over the previous version, so a little bit pricier. It color syncs Hue smart lights to content on your TV. It's HDMI 2.1 certified and supports high refresh rates of 120 Hz for 4K content and 60 Hz for 8K content. Still no word about variable refresh rate for gaming, but for those who couldn't use the previous version because of the limitations on the frame rate, this will be the upgrade for you.
Yeah, very, very cool. One of the kind of the smaller upgrades that I noticed to the software side of things is if you have got Philips Hue all over your house and you're starting to run out of spaces, because I think there's like 100 bulbs per hub, well, now you can attach a second hub to your system, and you can keep it on the same sign-in. So long time coming, but that's finally come. And for me, I have Hue everywhere. So very, very much welcome. Probably not going to get this HDMI sync box. The original I had, it was a great idea in theory. In practice, I just never really used it and found it in some ways distracting. I think if you're a PC gamer or if you're really into gaming, maybe that kind of added level of immersion would be kind of cool. But yeah, not for movies and TV shows, at least from my perspective. In terms of gaming, we did get quite a bit of gaming news. We talked about my addiction to Temple Run, and that continues. But on September 26th, we get Balatro Plus, a poker-inspired roguelike deck builder, day and date with the game's wider mobile release on iOS and Android. So what's cool, of course, is that on Apple Arcade, no in-app purchases, just play to your heart's content, which is very, very cool. Poker meets roguelike and deck builder. That all sounds a little bit too much for me, but I'm looking forward to giving it a shot.
I haven't had a chance to play this one before, so I'm really excited that it's coming to Apple Arcade. It's a really popular game and one that a lot of people actually have pretty high on their list for Game of the Year, actually. And from what I've heard, as far as the way people play it, you earn these Joker cards that you have to play to come up with these combos to defeat these enemies. And so it really does sound like a lot of fun and something that I'll enjoy. And the fact that it's coming to Apple Arcade at all, but also on the same day that it's coming to any other platform, I think is really impressive. This is going to be a big get for Apple Arcade, and for people who have played Balatro on other platforms and want it on their phones, or who have heard about it like me and just want to give it a try, this could push a lot of people towards Apple Arcade, which is exciting.
The next game is more up my alley because during the Paralympics that have just finished, I started watching a lot of wheelchair basketball. And I thought that was amazing. And also wheelchair rugby, which the final was the UK versus USA. I think the US just thought they were playing wheelchair NFL. Because they absolutely smashed us. Well, on October 3rd, we get 4 new games, starting with NBA 2K25 Arcade Edition, including the mobile debut of The Neighborhood, which is a fully traversable hoop culture paradise for competitive play, which, you know, I think NBA 2K every year coming to all platforms, including Apple TV. Definitely one to have in your diary for October 3rd, alongside Food Truck Pup Plus, a canine-themed food truck simulator with adorable pixel art. Yes, as well as Furista's Cat Cafe Plus, another simulator, this time featuring kittens that you must pair with the perfect caregiver while running and customizing your cafe. The perfect game for one Taylor Swift following this week's endorsement of Kamala Harris. And Smash Hit Plus, a rhythm-based physics game that challenges you to destroy obstacles across 50 rooms and 11 graphic styles.
This looks like a great batch for October. I love that they've got something for dog people and cat people, so no decision you have to make there. You can embrace it either way. And this Smash It Plus looks like a lot of fun as well. I love rhythm-based games, and this looks like a cool take on that. Now, of course, there are also a bunch of upcoming updates to Apple Arcade titles as well. Wildflowers sees the Magic Creatures update, featuring a new storyline about restoring Fairhaven's lighthouse. Sonic Dream Teens includes the Tail Challenge and Jukebox mode. Outlanders 2 has a new story centered on a new character named Jelena. And on Hello Kitty Island Adventure, there's a new mysterious boat that takes you to a new island featuring the city-town region. Let's move on to trailer talk. We did get a new trailer this week, one that I've been looking forward to, and I think one that you enjoyed a lot as well. This is the first trailer for The Last of the Sea Women. An extraordinary band of feisty grandmother warriors wage a spirited battle against vast oceanic threats. Often called real-life mermaids, the Haneo divers of South Korea's Jeju Island are renowned for centuries of diving to the ocean floor without oxygen to harvest seafood for their livelihood. This documentary tells an uplifting tale of women taking on world powers to protect their beloved ocean and inspiring a new generation.
해녀는 바다에 뛰어들어 우리 수만으로 해산물을 채취하는 게
이제는 옛날 같지 않아서 밖에 나가서 해녀하는 사람들도 없어.
멸쳐야 그 사람들이 알겠지.
우리도 싸울
겁니다. 끝까지.
A great trailer. I am really, really happy to see this finally coming. In the meantime, I have been checking out some of the previous work from director Soo Kim. Really, really fascinating stuff. And we'll be sure to put a couple of them as our up next picks or TV app highlights nearer the time of the streaming release. The Last of the Sea Women also hails as the first production from Malala Yousafzai's production house. Looks absolutely fantastic, and I've heard it's a bit of a tearjerker, this one, which isn't something that I necessarily got from the trailer itself. I just felt quite inspired by it. It follows a group of women known as the Hanao. Most of them are in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s, which is incredible. And what happens is they rise every morning and then spend hours diving to collect seafood and bring it to the surface. Some can swim up to 10 meters using nothing but a wetsuit, helmet, and their breath. But of course, with technology and environmental hazards changing the world around them, the Hanao way of life is in danger. And this documentary, which saw its world premiere at last weekend's Toronto International Film Festival, is said to explore the future of the Hanao in a battle against dwindling numbers, as well as the upcoming threat of radioactive wastewater from Japan that will soon pollute South Korea's seawater. Really, I'm just really looking forward to checking this out when it premieres October 11th on Apple TV Plus, and I'm really, really hopeful that I'll at least have an opportunity of seeing this on the big screen. A story that definitely needed to be told, and I'm glad lots of people are going to be able to learn about this, including ourselves. When it comes to festival news, we have a little bit from the London Film Festival, as the schedule was announced last week. Ticket sales actually went on sale earlier this week for BFI members, but general sales have yet to. So, a couple of dates to keep in mind in the schedule. October 10th sees a special event for upcoming Alfonso Cuarón limited series starring Cate Blanchett, Disclaimer. And we'll see Alfonso Cuarón and cast members join on stage for a discussion following a screening of its first 3 episodes. So very, very cool. But of course, the big news from the festival is that Blitz will make its world premiere at the London Film Festival opening gala this year on October 9th. And for those in the UK looking to also check out Blitz during the London Film Festival, you'll be able to both in London and in cinemas across the UK. Some other festival highlights to keep an eye on and check out the trailers for, because, you know, of course, not everyone listening is going to be able to make it to London for the festival, but some films to keep an eye out on. Night Bitch, which is the book adaptation of Rachel Yoder's book of the same name, starring, and I think you'll like this, Amy Adams in what has been described as her most daring and strangest performance. It's about a mother who starts to develop primal urges in the middle of the night, and looks really, really fun and very, very funny. Not what I was expecting from the synopsis of the book. Then we have Piece by Piece, which is the Pharrell Williams story but in Lego form, which I think is very, very cool. The Apprentice, which is a satirical look at the early days of Donald Trump. We Live in Time, a British romantic comedy with Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield, one definitely to check out. Luca Guadagnino's Queer, and then Once iPhone filmmaker Sean Baker is back with Honora. And of course, lastly, All of You, starring and written by Brett Goldstein in a romance alongside Imogen Poots. So they're my highlights. I'll be, of course, checking out lots during London Film Festival, and we'll report back once that's all been in a special episode of Magic Rays of Light. But when it comes to Apple original news, it doesn't end this week.
No, let's keep going with in development news. Apple has ordered new 10-episode original series Widow's Bay from creator Katie Dippold, directed by Hiro Murai, who many listeners may know from Atlanta, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and many more collaborations with Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino. The series centers on a mysteriously cursed New England island and its superstitious citizens, led by a mayor who refuses to believe their warnings.
We don't know if Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino, will be involved, but I've got to imagine, based on his collaboration kind of history with the director, that he will be involved somehow.
That would be very cool to see him collaborate with Apple. Another music artist that we definitely will be seeing collaborate with Apple soon is the one and only Kendrick Lamar, who will be headlining the Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show on Sunday, February 5th at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. Really exciting announcement. I love the way that Apple is involved with the halftime show and the way they can make this an event, and these announcements always get me very excited for the show coming up. We've got quite some time to wait, but I'm sure they'll be doing lots of promotion and lead up to it as we get there.
Yeah, one piece of promotion when this announcement was made, there was a video by Kendrick Lamar talking to someone off camera. Lots of references to Drake. So it seems like that battle between him and Drake has not yet finished. A lot of sly digs, but a very, very fun video. I guess because it is NFL season now, right? NFL kicked off last week. We didn't highlight it in our TV app highlights. It kind of tells you where we are when it comes to NFL, at least, and our connection to it. So I figured this is probably now the best time for me to choose an NFL team, or at least have you kind of choose one with me. What are the kind of picks for NFL teams that I should be going for this year? Hopefully to make it to Super Bowl.
That is tough. Well, the team that people around me really root for is the Cowboys, but I know they're kind of divisive, and I don't know exactly what their chances are as far as getting into the Super Bowl this year. You can't go wrong with the Patriots. They're a team that is always kind of in the mix of things. If you want to go West Coast, you could always go the 49ers. That's always an option as well. But I've got to be honest, my NFL knowledge is not a ton better than yours, unfortunately.
Okay, well, LA Raiders is definitely something that I am not going to choose. I went to an LA Raiders game once, and it was an experience, to say the least. I don't know much outside of college football. Mm-hmm. I went to a couple of Spartans, Michigan games back in the day. So I think I'm going to go with the 49ers because I wanted something California-based. It's where I visit the most. Who knows? I don't think they have much of a chance of anything, but we'll see. Yeah, the 49ers. Okay, let's see. Super Bowl. Kendrick Lamar. Woo!
Well, we'll have to see if your team can clinch the trophy this year, Sigmund. You had good luck with Miami picking them as your MLS team, Sigmund. So we'll have to see if your pick for the NFL can clinch the trophy. Speaking of awards, we had a bunch of Apple Original Awards this week, starting with the Jackson Wild Media Awards, where Earth Sounds took away 2 awards, including Best Sound and Best Innovation in Green Production. Then, in the lead-up to the Primetime Emmy Awards, we had the Creative Arts Emmy Awards, with Apple Originals having a great showing there, including 2 for the morning show, Outstanding Contemporary Hairstyling and Outstanding Contemporary Makeup Non-Prosthetic. Palm Royale for Original Main Title Theme Music, very well deserved there. Lessons in Chemistry for Music Composition for a limited series. Masters of the Air for Sound Mixing. Girl State for Directing for a documentary. And Cinematography for a nonfiction program. Outstanding Commercial for Apple's Fuzzy Feelings iPhone and Mac ad. And one that Apple hasn't touted, but we wanted to highlight here for sure, is an Innovation in Emerging Media Programming What If an Immersive Story from Marvel and ILM took home the prize. Congratulations there.
Yeah, the first Apple Vision Pro experience to receive an Emmy. And I really do hope that Apple give mention to that at some point, because it's quite an extraordinary feat, I think. Of course, this was also in collaboration with Apple. So they need to take a little bit of kudos for it as well. Lastly, the Imogen Awards. Best Supporting Actor went to Eugenio Debbez for Acapulco, which, of course, as we know, has recently been renewed. So more of that very soon. Now, when it comes to this week's releases, a packed week of Apple TV releases in what has been a very packed TV app for me over the last few weeks. I'm still catching up with everything, but today sees new episodes of Women in Blue, Bad Monkey, and Slow Horses. Friday, we get a new episode of Pachinko alongside Friday Night Baseball at 7 p.m. Eastern, where you can watch Los Angeles Dodgers at Atlanta Braves and Boston Red Sox at New York Yankees, the penultimate weekend of Friday Night Baseball on Apple TV+, at least for this season, as far as we know. On Saturday and Sunday, MLS Season Pass continues. And on Sunday, the Primetime Emmy Awards at 8 p.m. Eastern on ABC. And if you want to catch up with the Creative Art Emmys, you can check those out the day previous on Saturday night on ABC. This week's extras: The Weeknd, Dancing in the Flames. The music video in full will be released on Friday. This is the first kind of listen since a really cool live stream that The Weeknd had last weekend over on YouTube as part of the Amazon Prime Video experience. Amazing it was, from Brazil, and it was in celebration of NFL Brazil. So that was very, very cool. Some amazing visuals there, although I understand a lot of it was kind of generated through AI, which, you know, has some people kind of questioning, you know, the validity of the art shown. That said, the new music was incredible. Dancing in the Flames, the first sneak peek of his upcoming Hurry Up Tomorrow album, which is the final part of the After Hours trilogy, which, of course, we're expecting to see a really cool immersive experience project for Apple Vision Pro launching alongside. So, yeah, lots of tie-ins with Apple. Very, very exciting. I think over the last few weeks, we've given more than enough TV app highlights. So you've got a week off, but we do have a couple of up next picks for you this week.
This week, on a bit of a somber note, in addition to all the excitement about the Apple event, we're also mourning the loss of James Earl Jones. Such a talent and such a life lived. And so I've just been thinking about him and the performances of his that really impacted me, especially as a child with his voice acting. So my recommendations this week are going to be to revisit a couple of his works, including, of course, The Lion King, the animated Disney movie where he played Mufasa. That voice still in my mind forever, and really impactful performance on me as a kid and continue to enjoy growing up. And then Star Wars A New Hope, where he gave us Darth Vader. I mean, come on. What a legacy to leave there as well. So, of course, he had an incredible career, lots of work to check out. These are the two that I've been reflecting on and wanting to revisit in his honor, so we'll link to those in the show notes.
James Earl Jones will be sadly missed from the world of film. Now, my pick this week kind of ties in with the finale of Sunny in a strange way. Of course, we were going to do our recap this week. We're going to instead give you another week before we start delving into a lot of spoilers on that one. This is an Academy Award winner that I have yet to see. It's a animation from Pablo Berger called Robot Dreams. It follows a dog that lives in Manhattan and is tired of being alone. One day, though, he decides to build himself a robot, a companion, and their friendship blossoms until they become inseparable to the rhythm of 80s New York City. However, one summer night, Dog, with great sadness, is forced to abandon Robot at the beach. But will they ever meet again? We'll have to wait and find out, but this is available on Mubi in the UK and in the TV app, available to rent and to purchase. But yeah, definitely one I've been looking forward to. Definitely a recommendation, and really looking forward to our Sunny recap next week.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun discussion to look forward to. In terms of this week's episode, that's all we have for you this week, but we want to say thank you so much for listening. You can contact us on social media via the links in the show notes. You can email the show or send us an iMessage to magic@macstories.net. We'll be back next week with the theatrical premiere of Wolves, a highlight of La Maison, a look back at Sunny and Emmy results. So until then, stay safe, watch some Apple TV, play some Apple Arcade, and for those pre-ordering iPhones, best of luck.